Hello everybody and welcome to your Wednesday edition of the Blood Red Podcast, brought to you by the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host, Theo Squires, and what a barrel of laughs today's episode is going to be. We've put it off for 2 days, hoping for a bit more positivity and nothing at all to do with producer Ian being off on Monday. Instead, we're treated to back-to-back defeats and a double injury blow. Well, fortunately, we have the Echo's regular ray of sunshine alongside me here to find the positives in what's been a tricky few days for Liverpool. How are you feeling, Doyle?
I'm okay, but I'm a bit worried about your voice.
Yeah, my voice is gone.
I feel as though normally it's really high, and now it's just gone so far off the register, it's going to disappear. Very much like Liverpool's defence. See what I did there?
Very
that was
good.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you were at Selhurst Park.
Yeah.
You weren't at Turkey. It's been a tricky few days for Liverpool.
It has. I mean, we may as well deal with the game most recently played first, Galatasaray. I think it's different to the Palace game in the fact that Palace were quite good. Galatasaray are not very good, let's be honest. Not even close to being good, and I think that's the biggest disappointment. You can accept losing to a Palace team that's unbeaten in 18 games now, isn't it? They obviously made a massive deal of that. You know, in fact, you should make more of a deal of the fact that they've actually won the FA Cup and they've won something rather than that long unbeaten run. But anyway,
What, unbeaten 3 times against Liverpool during that run?
Yeah. I mean, there's 2 draws and a last-minute defeat in a time added over. But yeah, I do think that the Galatasaray one is the one that'll hurt them the most because it was kind of a reaction to what should have been a reaction to what happened at Palace. And it did seem as though Liverpool just, for whatever reason, they just lack intensity. And what we do gain, though, is our producer Ian is coming over and moving stuff around. Find out what that was about. Couldn't really hear him. Fine.
That's my voice, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's probably more his voice. Anyway, going back to the game
The
itself.
joys of the live show.
Yeah, going back to the game itself, Galatasaray. Liverpool didn't start particularly well. They didn't have that intensity, which was the problem that they had against Crystal Palace. But when Liverpool conceded the goal, they were obviously playing not well, but they just created a chance, hadn't they? A very big chance where Ekitike had gone through and Gakpo had the shot that had been cleared off the line. And I think with the penalty, what we saw, well, it was a soft one. That's the kind of penalty that a right back would never concede. A right back would never put his hands up there. You know, as a midfielder, you can get away with that kind of thing in midfield in the skirmish, but when you're in the area, you can't do that, especially when you're running back and the player's cutting inside you because tricky winger, you know, he's a Turkey international. He'll know
Rapid as well.
Yeah,
he'll
know exactly what to do, and he just felt a bit of contact, went to the floor, and once the referee gives the penalty, he's never going to overturn it. So from that point of view, not great, but there was still 74 minutes to go plus injury time. So Liverpool had more than enough time to get something out of that game. That they didn't will be worrying to a degree in the sense that it comes off the back of what happened against Palace. In terms of a one-off, your teams go to Galatasaray and lose. I mean, it's obviously a difficult venue. I've been to Istanbul before to see Liverpool play Galatasaray. That was at the Ataturk. I mean, the loudest, we always said this, the loudest
2006, 2007.
2006, yeah. Loudest atmosphere I've ever experienced was the following year against Besiktas, where they lost 2-1. Now, of course, with both of those 2 games, Liverpool had won initially at Anfield, and then they went against Galatasaray and they beat Besiktas 8-0. But the thing about this new look, well, I say new look, it's the second season, the opening stage, is that you don't get another chance against these teams. You might come up against them a bit later on in the knockout stages, although I'd be amazed if Galatasaray got through and not just saying it's not sour grapes, it's actually watching the game. And, you know, I can see why they lost 5-1 against Frankfurt. If Liverpool have a little bit more composure in attack, if they had scored first, for example, I'd imagine they would have gone on 1-2 or 3. Possibly Galatasaray would have scored, but I couldn't have seen Liverpool losing. But
well, Galatasaray chances were Liverpool making mistakes.
Well, that's the thing, is that they didn't really open Liverpool up as such. It was Liverpool opening themselves up, but they were better at doing that than they were at opening up the Galatasaray defence in the second half, because that'll be a concern, is the fact that the substitutions didn't really make a lot of difference to the way Liverpool were playing. And they, for the first time, I think they seemed to lack a little bit of belief that they were going to get something out of a game. That's the first time we've seen that this season. So that is probably the more worrying thing. But again, we can pick the bones out of it all, which we're going to in a over the course of the next half hour or so, because there are issues that, while we've mentioned them quite a lot on these podcasts, other people who've just seen the results and highlights and parts of the performances are probably going, well, what's the problem? What are people moaning about? They've just won, you know, what was it, the first 7 games of the season, not counting the Community Shield, obviously. But yeah, this is why we've been talking about these things.
no Paul Gorse today. If you're watching along on YouTube or listening in and haven't heard his dulcet tones so far.
He's on a plane.
He's currently travelling back from Turkey. Not even NordVPN could sort out his connection to join us remotely from up in the clouds. And I don't think our expenses budget could stretch to getting him Turkish Airlines' finest Wi-Fi in first class either. But unfortunately, we can afford NordVPN, and so can you too, with our sponsor's wonderful welcome offer.
That was the opposite of seamless. That was quite painful. Do continue.
I've got to be a bit creative with all these week after week, don't I? To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. As always, the link is in the podcast episode description box. We are back live on YouTube and on Facebook, so get your questions in. We will answer them at some point in the episode. If you want to email me ahead of any episodes, you can contact me on theo.squires@reachplc.com. I have actually had one question since we last did a live show, but I just replied to the email because it wasn't really one we could properly address here. It was just, who is Arne Slot talking to in his press conferences? Not being you or Paul Gorst, as in Tony Barrett next to him.
Oh, right.
It didn't need to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. We've put it off. Well, we've not put it off long enough because you've given us quite a detailed look at Galatasaray there. But in our show thumbnail, we've seen a very glum-looking Arne Slot, as the thumb title says, concerns grow. Liverpool slipped to a second successive defeat. What are you doing with the alliteration for me here, producer Ian? That's not helping me at all. Second defeat in a row. What I was going to say is I initially thought producer Ian was just making a head start on Monday's pod title because I saw Liverpool slip to second, which could quite easily happen over the weekend. Anyway,
we've got a Friday pod as well, so let's not
look too far into the future. Back-to-back losses, successive poor performances. How concerned are you by recent goings on?
Well, going back to what I said before, not any more concerned than I was a couple of weeks ago from watching them. This is exactly what I thought was going to happen at the risk of sound.
I've said it a few times.
I've said this quite a lot, that when you have so many new players coming in, it takes time to gel. But you look at the team now, obviously you mentioned about the injuries. So if you go through the team now, you've got a goalkeeper who's injured and a new goalkeeper who's going to have to come in. You've got 2 right backs
who've both been injured.
One of them missed a lot of the summer. You've got a centre back who's now getting towards 35. To be fair, but he can't keep on doing it all by himself. You've got another centre back who is, I don't know what's happened to Canate. We could just do 5 podcasts on his form this season, to be honest. We've got Joe Gomez, who hasn't really played that much. Leone, the new signing, is already out for the season. Left back, you've got Kirkes, who's finding the leap up, or the step up, I should say, from playing for Bournemouth to playing for Liverpool, or say Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United. The difference in expectation and the scrutiny on performances, it's going to take a while for him to get used to that.
You forget how young he still is.
Well, this is the thing as well, yeah. I mean, he may be a confident lad, but when confident people take a knock, they tend to feel it a bit more than, say, other people. So it's just going to be a little bit of a learning curve for him. And obviously, Andy Robertson, somebody who can come in. You go into midfield, Alexis McAllister, one of the best players last season, nowhere near fit, still a bit of an issue for him. You got Florian Wirtz, who's come into a new team, new country, new league, and he's playing in a position that the way that he plays is new for Liverpool, or this Liverpool. You've got Salah on the right, who hasn't got Trent around him, and he hasn't got any of his other most of his other attacking chums have gone, or not in the
only one who's still
anymore.
There is the one who was furthest away from him.
Exactly, Gakpo, and you've got a striker in Ekitike who's now injured anyway. In fact, he was one of the main pluses from the first 6 weeks of the season, and Isak, who's not played very much, and against Galatasaray hardly got a touch. He got 4 touches, and this first one was a shot. So when you look at it like that, it's like, how on earth are Liverpool top of the table? But they've got a lot of quality regardless, and we've seen that they're able to dig things out. But that's the one thing that possibly concerned me, is that they kind of just looked as though they'd ran out of ideas, and they'd ran out of a little bit of belief against Galatasaray. I don't necessarily think the Palace defeat knocked them as such. I think it more annoyed them than anything else. I think this one will be... This one will annoy them as well, but in a different way, because it would have kind of shone a light on some of the things. For example, Jeremie Frimpong got bought, not entirely for this reason, but partly so he could replace Salah when Salah goes off to the Africa Cup of Nations, where it could be as many as 10 games, couldn't it? Just over around Christmas time.
Some big games
played, and he played on the right wing and wasn't particularly great. He got into a lot of good positions, but his final ball wasn't particularly great, apart from the one for Ekitike at the start of the second half. We mentioned the right-back situation where it looks as though Slot at the moment doesn't trust him at right-back, doesn't really trust Bradley for that kind of game, or whether or not he kind of alluded to this afterwards, that because the pair of them haven't had full, training sessions in terms of the full, certainly Bradley didn't have the full summer, and then obviously Frimpong was out for about a month, wasn't it? Is that he doesn't want to overload them with playing 90 minutes and 90 minutes 3 times in a week. That's partly due to it. And then so you're looking then at Szoboszlai, he's probably been the best right back, but he's responding to the fact that where he played last season as the number 10, he's not playing there at the moment because Wirtz is there. And I think when you spend £116 million on a player, he's gonna play more often than not. And Szoboszlai's reacted to that, and I think part of Liverpool's problem is that some of the other players are having a little bit of I'm not talking the established players, having a little bit of a crisis of confidence at the wrong time. And I don't necessarily think that's anything to do with the fact Liverpool are champions and are a team that people are targeting, because playing for Liverpool, playing for a team like United, Chelsea, Arsenal, the ones I mentioned before, that's like that for every game. So it's nothing new for those players, but the disappointment would be that there are 1 or 2 senior players who aren't quite stepping up at the moment. But as I've just said, you go through that list of, I wouldn't say concerns, 1 or 2 you could say concerns, but list of issues that Slot has to address, and they will do, because there's no doubt that the players they've got there are good enough to be playing for the club and for this team. And as we've seen from his managerial career at Feyenoord and at Liverpool, he knows how to find tactical answers. I mean, he got it wrong against Galatasaray. That didn't help, and he did try to change it second half, but I think it was too far gone by that point. I think Slot will find a way, but again, Liverpool haven't defended a trophy successfully for 41 years. I think it'll be 40 to 42 this season. And there's a reason for that, because it's hard, especially if you're trying to win back-to-back, or as you would say, successive league titles. It's not easy, and you can't afford to have lengthy spells in this Premier League where you do lose your form, which is why those 5 wins at the start of the season, especially when you consider the fact that they played a game at home against Arsenal, they played away at Newcastle, and they played a Merseyside derby, they're going to be very, very important over the next 2 months, I reckon.
The main issue really has probably been the defence. It just doesn't look right. We can look at the Galatasaray game and say, made a mistake with the right back, but that's just a one-off match. You look at the rest of that defence, Konate, it's pretty much every game at the moment. Kirkes, it's the majority of the games where you're looking at it and it's not working for whatever reason. They're making silly mistakes, and the scrutiny is just getting greater and greater.
I think with Konate had a couple of good games recently, just before these.
Arsenal was one.
He was good, yeah. So
I think both of them, Arsenal and Everton, they both defended well. But around that, for the majority, it's more mistakes against Palace, mistakes against Galatasaray.
I mean, he had a nightmare against Palace, and of course you've got the added complication for Konate about his contract, which he still hasn't signed, and Real Madrid have reportedly been looking at him for quite some time. But we'll have to see how that pans out. But it doesn't help. I mean, we had this last season with Trent, with Salah, with Van Dijk, and they reacted in the right way. And they said we're only was it 10 games into the season? I think it's 10, isn't it? Yeah. So it's a long way to go. So Konate can plenty of time to get his act together. The problem is that Liverpool have already lost one of their centre-back options, and Joe Gomez is the only other player who's probably capable of playing. I know he mentions Ryan Gravenberch and he mentions Endo, but I think Endo started 1 game there last season at centre-back.
I think if you put Endo and Gomez in, they don't have the game time to go in and hit the ground running.
Yeah. And Gravenberch, he's played in the towards the end of the game last night and against Palace as well, but you're not going to be starting a game with him there. So I don't think that's a realistic option for Slot at centre-back. But I don't necessarily think it's the defence. You can go through the team and you go, they got a different number 9, whether it's Ekitike or Isak, who doesn't necessarily know the way Liverpool defend as a whole. You've certainly got a number 10 who isn't going to be defending anything like Szoboszlai did, because he doesn't get around the pitch as much, but he's not being asked to. Then that puts more pressure on the 2 holding midfielders, and one of them's not fit, McAllister. So again, Liverpool are giving away more chances. And then that's without we even mentioned the fullbacks, who are both reasonably new. Certainly one of them is in Kirkes, but whether it's Bradley, he's reasonably new because he's not started that many Premier League games. So this is going to take time. So it shouldn't be a surprise that Liverpool are coughing up more chances. The worry for me against Galatasaray is that they never looked like they were going to score in the second half, in particular the last half an hour. And that'll be the greater concern, because you can kind of fix defending, because it's a lot easier to defend than it is to attack. You can just put loads of people behind the ball and fill in holes, and you can sort that.
Well, Michael Owen covered that recently, didn't he? Saying you can't build a house, but you could knock it down.
Exactly, yeah. So it's harder to get a team attacking. And when you consider that Liverpool were the top scorers in the Premier League last season, and they scored a fair amount in the Champions League as well, and obviously did in the League Cup, getting all the way to the final, there are aspects that have to be improved. But again, Isak's only just started there. They've lost the goals of Diaz, Nunez, and obviously Jota. They're going to have to get them somewhere else. And while Salah's not been at his best I think he's in 8 or 9 games, he's still got 9 games. He's got 3 goals and 3 assists. So he's still delivering some numbers, but it's up to the rest of them, part of Ekitike, to start helping out a bit more. I know Granberg's got 2 as well from midfield, but the rest of them, I think they do need to, certainly from the fullback positions, in terms of creating chances, because that's something that Liverpool are missing out on.
I know Slot said it a few times now, pointing to the players that haven't had that proper pre-season or have had the disjointed one. But you can see how much of a difference that's made. Say McAllister wasn't out for 4 months, has a full pre-season. Well, then you can trust him to start every game. And the pressure's maybe not on Wirtz as much because, Szoboszlai starting that game. It's like we saw Jurgen Klopp used to do, where Fabinho can take 2 months to get in the team. Ryan Gravenberch can take a whole season to get in the team. Slot's not been afforded that luxury.
No, but I think also you got to bear in mind just the amount of money that they did spend on Wirtz and Isak. Isak, a bit different case, because you know that he's going to come good because he's scored so many goals in the Premier League anyway. With Wirtz, it is a little bit different. He's going to be playing more often than not, as I said before, purely on the basis that they spent that much money on him. And why would you not play him? And I think you're right to suggest that he perhaps shouldn't be playing as much as he is at the moment. But what games take him out? He didn't play against Everton, did he? And I think
didn't play against Southampton either.
That doesn't really count though, because most of them didn't play in that game. I think he's played all the rest, hasn't he? And the game against Galatasaray was the first time he got through a full 90 minutes. Yeah. But that was partly because obviously Alisson and Ekitike had to go off.
Which brings us on to Alisson and Ekitike. It doesn't sound too brilliant on Alisson. I think Ekitike is slightly more positive, but it looks like Liverpool could be without both of them for the weekend. What's Arne Slot said?
Well, he's basically said what you just said. It's almost like you listened to what he was saying and just repeated it. Yeah, he said basically that Alisson, he backtracked from 100% out to 99.9% out. And Ekitike, they weren't quite sure. Well, it would be a surprise if he plays against Chelsea, given that he had to get treatment on the pitch and was taken off. Both of those injuries came from bad passes from Liverpool. One of them, I can't remember who played the pass to Ekitike, but he was stretching for it. And the other one was obviously Kanate. Just gives the ball straight to Osimhen and then he runs off. And Alisson injures himself when he's having to turn around and sprint back. So he still makes the save. And then as soon as he puts his hand up, this isn't great. Kind of think, while we haven't had it confirmed, we're pretty sure it's going to be his hamstring.
Again,
which, as we know, the last 2 seasons he's had lengthy spells out because of that. And if that's the case, then you're probably not going to see him for another 6 weeks, which gives an opportunity to Georgi Mamadashvili, who obviously played against Southampton, didn't really have anything to do against Galatasaray. And the difference between him and, say, Adrian and certainly Kelleher is that he played last season, the whole thing for Valencia. And he plays all the time for Georgia as well. So he's got plenty of minutes in the bag. And obviously he played quite a few games during the summer for Liverpool in pre-season. So he'll be okay in the sense of being sharp and fresh and all of that kind of thing. What will be interesting is that for the Liverpool as a whole, will they, as sometimes happened when Kelleher was in goal, certainly with Adrian, will they change the outlook to try and protect a little bit more because they've got a new goalkeeper there? Because there's a reason why Alisson probably still is the best goalkeeper in the world. We saw that against Palace in the first half. We saw that with a couple of saves he did against Galatasaray. So that might play into Liverpool perhaps looking to tighten things up a little bit to try and offer a little bit more protection, and whether that's from tactical tweaks or, as we think might happen, Szoboszlai going into the number 10 role and a proper right back playing at right back.
We do have, I suppose, another slight injury to cover, and that's Federico Chiesa. Arne Slot said he missed Galatasaray with a slight niggle, wasn't it? But he could be back for Chelsea. Unfortunate for him because he came on against Palace and he did well. He gets the goal. He's had a bright start to the season. That could have been a game where you may be looking to give him a bit more game time. But it's just another case of Chiesa. It doesn't happen for him where you think he's poised to grab an opportunity.
Yeah, but I think the difference is that I don't think he's got the same pressure now to have to take these opportunities, because he knows this season, he knows that Slot knows what he can do. You know, he got the 2 assists against Southampton, he got the goal at Palace, he's already got one against Bournemouth earlier in the season. So he knows that he can do things at Premier League level. So I don't think it was just unfortunate in the sense that, more unfortunate for Liverpool than it was for Chiesa that he wasn't playing against Galatasaray, because he would have come on. He could have even played, to be honest, or started the game. So
I think in my predicted 11, I'd have started him on the left.
Yeah, so he could have played. But yeah, hopefully he'll be back for Chelsea, because
we're going to need him now with Ekitike injured.
The thing is, Liverpool have made the conscious decision. To be fair, Jurgen Klopp was the same, where they want to go before about 24 players in the first team squad, of which some of them are going to be youngsters. And now that they've lost Leone, Alisson, Ekitike, the McAllister's not properly fit. 2 of them are youngsters, and Yoni, who's not played a Premier League game. Ungamo's not started one. And Chiesa, we just mentioned. Suddenly it's like, well, hang on, that was 7 or 8 players I've just mentioned then.
And you've lost the big experience of Trent, of Darwin Núñez, of Luis Diaz, of Diogo Jota. Kelleher was very experienced as well. Yeah,
these are players who are used to playing multiple games in a row. You certainly can't ask that of Ungamo and Yoni. And for some, while, you know, for example, Frimpong and Verstella played Bundesliga, Champions League same week, but the intensity in the Premier League, as we've seen and said so often, is different. And certainly for someone like Ekitike, it's something slightly new as well. So, yeah, suddenly Liverpool's squad, while, again, it shouldn't really be much of a concern, you can see that what Slot thinks is a positive in terms of working with a smaller amount of players, it does become a slight negative when injuries to certain players happen at certain times. And I think you can also see why they were quite keen to sign Mark Gay, because I don't think there'd be as many concerns now if they had signed him.
Let's take a deeper dive on Florian Wirtz. It's not quite happened for him so far. A few glimpses last night. He was good against Atletico Madrid, but then there's games where it's not quite happening. And with that price tag, there's always going to be a lot of scrutiny from outside Liverpool. What have you made of his start to his Liverpool career and the attention that he is getting?
It's a strange one in the sense that if I read something just before that in terms of creating chances in all competitions, I think no one's created more than him. I think he's at 21 in all competitions this season. A Premier League player, I mean.
Yeah.
A Premier League player in all competitions. I think Jack Grealish might be high up there as well. I think
they might be level, maybe.
It's 21.
Can producer Ian confirm? Is he on top of Jack Grealish stats?
No.
He's not listening. Never mind.
No, he wasn't listening.
We'll carry on without him.
Yeah, Jack Grealish is the most foul player in
As
Europe.
always.
And that is true. That's 22 fouls. I think the next one's on 17. But he doesn't get enough free kicks, apparently. So
they don't have anyone who can take him anyway.
Well, there is that. What was the question?
Attention on Wirtz. What have you made of the scrutiny and everything?
Yeah, but I think there you go. There's an example. I was going to say there's the numbers, but then there's the eye test. It's like you watched him last night and you thought there were some good bits, but in the second half in particular, he kind of felt as though he fell away. Then you actually write down or look at exactly what he did. He had the shot in the first half, which was saved by the goalkeeper. He's the one that puts the ball over the top for Isak to have his chance, and he also puts a cross in for Bradley for a header. Now, keeper made a good save. The header from Bradley should have been better, if we're being honest. I think he was a bit surprised it reached him. And Isak, that was his first of only 4 touches in the entire match, so there wasn't, you wouldn't expect him to do much for that. It was a bit of a snapshot anyway. But then the other side of that is that Wirtz was the player who follows up from Gakpo shot off the line and
does the back
flick, and it sets Galatasaray away to go down the other end and win a penalty and score the goal that ultimately wins the game. And there was a few other moments where he got knocked off the ball a bit easily. I think he wasn't the only one, to be fair. He got a bit annoyed with the referee.
Gets booked, doesn't he, later on?
Yeah, and he gets booked late on because I think he just frustrated more than anything else. So that kind of sums up the way things are going for him at the moment. I mean, I don't really have any concerns about him in the long term. They bought him for 5 years, not 5 or 6 weeks. So you're going to have to get around the fact that they are going to build a team around him, because Slot's already said that he wants him to replicate the creativity of Trent, but from a different position. But to do that, you need the right players in front of him. And I think certainly with Isak, we've seen that they've got an understanding straight away. I think with Ekitike, it might take a bit more time, and it's how that impacts Gakpo and in particular Salah. And then behind them, they're still trying to work out who the other two midfielders are. I mean, Gravenberch will be one, but then who's going to be the other one? I mean, it was Curtis Jones last night, who I actually thought did quite well when he wasn't getting shoved into the ground and his face all scraped. And I wouldn't be surprised if Curtis plays against Chelsea.
I think there's two players here that is really not helping for Wirtz. One of them's McAllister, because if he's fully fit, he's on the ball, he's moving it that little bit quicker, he's getting Wirtz on the ball as such. But it's also up front. As you said there is a already immediate connection with Alexander Isak, but Isak's off the last man. He's like wanting to get him behind the defence. Whereas Ekitike, we already know he likes to come a bit deeper. He's trying to get on the ball, but that's occupying the space that Florian Wirtz might be in. Yeah. But this is always going to be teething problems when it's a new look side.
Exactly, yeah. These are the things they have to work out for themselves, not just necessarily Slot on the training pitch, but these are intelligent footballers who are amongst the best in their respective positions. That's why they've signed for Liverpool, who, of course, the Premier League champions and playing in the Champions League. So there is a certain level standard that they have anyway. And I think, the best players do tend to just work it out. I mean, I think there will be, as I say, there will be the plan. I mean, Wirtz got sold the vision of Liverpool, didn't he, where by Slot and said, right, we're going to do this with you. Whatever it was that he said, they're not going to change their mind after 5 or 6 weeks. So it's something they'll have gone after Isak as well to fit in with that. And they'll have bought other players around that just to fit into it. So I think what's happening this season, this is basically the season that I expected Liverpool to have last season when Slot came in, because normally when a new manager comes in, he takes on the squad and goes, right, I'm going to want to change this, and this. But he didn't, because there'd been so much tumult behind the scenes last summer, I should say, that while he obviously wanted to sign Zubimendi, he was forced into a position where he went, well, let's try Gravenberch there then. That massively paid off. He made other decisions like Diaz playing down the centre for half the season of the attack. That paid off as well for the most part. And what we're seeing now is, a couple of the players, like Trent wanted to go, Núñez was obviously going, Diaz, he opted to go as well. And other players are getting kind of older, towards more nearer the end than the beginning. I mean, Van Dijk and Salah, obviously. This is the kind of change that was always going to come at some point, and it just happens to be coming this season rather than last season. And also, I also think the other thing is, you look at the way that Liverpool ended last season, where they kind of fell away. They'd already won the league, obviously, but mathematically doing it. The way they fell away, I think that underlined why they were making these changes, because I think that squad has been taken as far as they possibly could have gone. I think by winning the league, they did that. And now it's building a team that can not just challenge, not just this season or next season, but for 2 or 3 seasons after that. And it's going to take time.
Weekend just gone, it was massive for Arsenal when you look at Liverpool losing the manner they do against Crystal Palace, Arsenal winning the manner they do at Newcastle. They're your Premier League title favourites now?
Well, they have been all the way through. I've said this. I've said multiple times, if Arsenal or Chelsea don't win the
league, you can't have Chelsea as favourites.
I said league or the Champions League, the manager should be sacked. Simple as that.
Okay, I'm not going to elaborate on that. But yeah, it was a big twist in the title race, as much as you can have a big twist this early on in the season.
Big twist, but I don't think anybody was surprised that Liverpool lost at Crystal Palace and Arsenal won at Newcastle. Just the manner of it.
But Arsenal don't have a great record at St James's. Liverpool normally do quite well.
No, but it's not as if they ever go there and play massively poorly. I think, and don't forget, Newcastle at the moment aren't particularly great either. I mean, it would have been completely different had Isak been there, for example. So that's, again, going back to what I said earlier, that's why Liverpool's first 5 games have been so important, getting those points, especially the 3 against Arsenal, because it means that even if they have wobble, which obviously this might be the start of it, they're not going to be massively out of touch by the time they get back on the rails.
But it doesn't get any easier for Liverpool. Chelsea away next. After that, you've got Manchester United, a couple other tough games, whereas Arsenal at home to West Ham, I think, this weekend.
Well, that's what they lost last season against West Ham. That was the turning point in the league.
On paper, though, they have got an easier run coming up, and Liverpool, having had these back-to-back defeats, are going to have to go to a difficult place and try and find a way to win.
True, but Arsenal did play Man United away on the first day. They played Liverpool away. They played Newcastle away, and they played Man City at home. So it's not as if they haven't had any tough games. You know what I mean? Again, they came through it. What was it? 4 wins, 1 defeat, 1 draw. They're on 13 points. Good maths by me there. Yeah. I mean, Crystal Palace is kind of a venue where they would go and win 4 or 5-1 easy. They just tend to do that there. Yeah, it's tough for Liverpool, but as I've said before, I fully expect them to have these teething troubles, and at least you're doing it in games that they're already tough ones. If you see what I mean, like so, you'd be more concerned if they were losing at Burnley. You'd be more concerned if, with a great respect, they're drawing at home against someone like Everton. A bit different to going to Everton and getting a draw. It's always a good result, but they are games that they should be winning. When you play against Chelsea away, it's not a game you should be winning. They didn't win there last season. They didn't win there the season before that. So it's already a tough game. It'll just be interesting to see on Saturday how Liverpool react in terms of the intensity of the game and how they react in terms of the belief and attitude, because I think Chelsea are very up and down at the moment, and I believe that they're not going to have many defenders available for the game. Certainly first choice ones. But it's at Stamford Bridge, and while I seem to be right in saying Liverpool actually had a very good record there for quite a few years, and they haven't actually lost that often to Chelsea in the league over the last 6 or 7 years. They've got a lot of good players, Chelsea, and they're obviously the best team in the world, apparently, because they won the Club World Friendly Cup.
Looking at Premier League injuries, Chelsea have got more absences than anyone else at the moment, with 9. Levi Colwill, Liam Delap, Cole Palmer, Tosin, Chalobah's suspended, Andre Santos, Wesley Fofana, Mudryk suspended still, and someone else who I don't know, Dario Luis Asuga. Who's that? Any ideas?
Know. Do we know who that is?
No. So, but a lot of absences either way. And as you've said, they've been up and down. Maybe there's a bit of a sting from having to go and play in that Club World Cup for the injuries. But we saw them lose 3-1 at home to Brighton last week.
Sending off, wasn't it? They've had a player sent off in quite a few, the last 3 games, haven't they?
3 and 4.
3 and 4, sorry, yeah.
And then they struggled at times against Lincoln. They lost to United, haven't had a red card. Lost to Bayern Munich, drew at Chelsea. As you said, it's up and down. Is it a good time to play Chelsea?
Well, not for Liverpool, because they've got without like one of the informed player this season, and they've lost the goalkeeper, so no.
Okay. Is it a good time to play Liverpool?
Again, it depends on how Liverpool approach the game. If it's very, very rare that Liverpool lose 3 games in a row, but taken in isolation, these 3 games you could understand why if they didn't end up winning them or getting beat. See what I mean? So, yeah, I think in terms of whether it's a good time to play Liverpool, I think at the moment anybody who's playing Liverpool will fancy the chances to have a chance, and I think that is the main worry.
We're somewhat limited on the YouTube questions today. We've just got a comment.
No one's expecting it on a Wednesday, that's why.
No one's expecting it on a Wednesday, and no one's expecting it after 3 o'clock as well, maybe.
Yeah.
Jim's just said he'd rather have a drop-off now as opposed to the end of the season at the business end, which I suppose it's a fair point. When you look at Liverpool have signed a lot of players, but so did Manchester City, so did Arsenal, so did Chelsea. All of them are going to have these teething problems.
What I would say on that is that City signed a lot of their players in January. So they've had an extra 6 months. And with Arsenal's signings, a lot of them are either fringy / replacing
apart from
players,
not started,
replacing players who are going to get moved out of the team over time. Like Eze's one. Eze's one where you can put him straight in, but you don't have to. I think a bit different with Zubimendi, but then he's someone who's replacing some players who they've left, and the rest of them, they are kind of, I mean, Gyökeres, bit different.
Madueke's injured, but he was a backup, wasn't he, for Saka?
Exactly, yeah. And then, to be fair, and he's a backup for Havertz anyway.
Good point. Teams. So we know there's going to be a change.
Teams? Not to do teams. We're doing a
we're still doing Friday, aren't we?
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of myself here. It's because I've been thrown completely.
Unprofessional, isn't it?
Unprofessional. Does that bring us to the end? Do you have anything else you want to bring up here before we call an end to today's podcast?
We could go back to the Palace game. I think the Palace game...
I was trying to ignore Palace.
No, the Palace game was interesting because of how poorly they started. And, yeah, going back to Chiesa.
Okay.
Chiesa, where he did make more of a positive difference. I think that's come from the belief of what he's already... certainly against Southampton, of what he's done this season, and that's why
2 goals, 2 assists from 6 games.
And that's why I was saying is that I think he's become an actual genuine alternative up front, and then you have to go down the road of Salah, which we touched on just before. Someone is going to have to replace him for those games. Frimpong, they bought it partly with that in mind. Didn't have a great start, although what I would say on that is that it wasn't exactly the perfect game to come in and do that. Gakpo can play over there. I think he did it the last time he went to the
He's not had a great start to the season.
Exactly, yeah. So Chiesa, there is an opportunity there for him. So while we touched on the fact before that it was unfortunate for him, poor timing for him not to be available for Galatasaray, the difference is, I think, as I said, he will have opportunities because I think Slot trusts him a bit more. And he's going to have to, because what we'll see now is the amount of money that Liverpool spent in the summer. I think the bigger impact now will be the amount of players and the type of players that they sold who possibly could have come in and done things. You know, Gerald Quanta's one. You know, Tyler Morton's didn't play a league game last season, but
doing really well in France.
Yeah, exactly. We mentioned Diaz. I think that was more of a financial thing than anything else.
He wanted to go as well.
Yeah, and I think same with Núñez. I think certain players reach the end of the natural cycle, but I do think that it's going to take a little more time, and fans just have to be patient. You know, season is long, and Liverpool have obviously won the Premier League. They got to a League Cup final last year. They won the League Cup the year before that. It's not as if they're not achieving things, but you can't win it every single year. And I think sometimes, certainly for when you have as many new faces as Liverpool have got, there is going to be times where there's a transition and where they don't meet up to expectations. What I would say is that what tends to happen is the final result or the end product isn't always 100% what was envisaged. So it will be interesting to see who's lining up for Liverpool in March and April compared to what perhaps we all thought in September the 1st when Isak signed.
It's going to be interesting enough to see who lines up against United. You think one more game, then it's the international break. Slot said he expects Isak to be more at the level they need from him after that international break. But if you know at that point, Alisson's out for another month. Ekitike, however serious or minor that is, that has a knock-on effect for Chiesa if he's going to be involved more. If he's even starting Premier League games, if Isak's not quite there yet, then you're hoping, is McAllister up to speed? Is Connor Bradley up to speed? Or if Frimpong settled more, Kirk has settled more. It's going to be a big couple of weeks for Liverpool, even if they're all going away on international duty.
Well, that's the thing about McAllister as well, is that they're up. I mean, they're playing friendlies, aren't they now, in South America, because they've already they finished their. So it'll be interesting to see
maybe they can just leave him at home.
Whether he goes, it's actually good for him to actually get more minutes. He's obviously not 100%.
Venezuela and Puerto Rico, if you're interested.
Puerto Rico, yeah. Have you been to Puerto Rico? No, neither have I.
No.
That's the end of that conversation then.
That just stopped your point there. What were you going to say before?
Yeah,
McAllister, good if he could get some minutes, or would it be better for him to stay at home?
I mean, I would say that, to be honest, he probably needs the minutes. He needs the minutes, even if it's just half in each game. I do think that he is definitely behind. Don't forget that he had the injury towards the end of last season, and he's been managing it for obviously a little bit before that, and he's admitted that earlier in the summer. So Liverpool are missing him, because you would miss one of the players who was voted in the top 6 of best players last season by his fellow professionals.
That's all we've got time for today. I'm off on Friday, and I think Gorsty is too, so you might be flying solo. So stay tuned.
Me with Rich Garnett, I think.
Was it you and Rich Garnett? Oh, that's all right then. You're not flying.
He's only finding out. Hopefully, he's finding out about that now. Yeah.
So you'll be hosting that one?
No, I'll let him do it.
Oh, that'll be interesting. Maybe a Rich Garnett host and debut. I was going to say it's Joe Rimmer's leaving doing this, so maybe you could rope him in for a guest appearance.
I think the chances of him coming in here and doing that for nothing are 0.
Well, you could get him a pint on his leaving do.
Still 0.
That is also chance of 0, isn't it? You getting someone a pint. But yeah.
Whoa. Of all the people to say it.
And we've got our Christmas do to start planning now, a couple of months
exactly,
off.
Don't walk off when it's time to pay.
What a moment that was. Producer Ian's not enjoyed any of these yet. Hopefully he makes his Echo Christmas do.
Yeah, you'll have to this year to make up the numbers.
But yes, thanks to Doyle for joining me. Thanks to all you guys at home for tuning in. Hopefully next time I'm hosting one of these, Liverpool have given us something a little bit more positive to talk about. But until next time, thank you and goodbye.